Good morning, everyone. It's Friday morning, and I am Pastor Lori Kochanski. I'm the assistant to the bishop for faith formation here in the Synod, and I'm coming to you from my very alive backyard. One of the things I learned from my birding husband and listening is that if you sit in a place for at least 15 minutes, maybe 20, if you can make yourself sit there 30 minutes, it becomes like it was before you came. And so I've been sitting out here listening as the birds have made a racket and then gotten quieter and now seem to be talking amongst themselves. So it's good to be with all of you on this first day of May, to talk with you as they talk to themselves, all of creation alive. As I woke up this morning, as I do many of these mornings, I try to notice what God is trying to speak before I touch my phone or get out of bed even. And this morning there were two Bible verses, not even verses, Bible commands, Bible reminders that came to me. So I share them with you freely and with curiosity about what they will spark in you. The first was peace be still. Now, it's not a far stretch to know where that comes from, perhaps my own psyche, but it is in the Bible, and Jesus does speak it. So peace be still. And then the other one, as I lay there, I distinctly was noticing a shimmering of the verse that reminds us from Isaiah that we have been called by name and we are God's. I have called you by name, you are mine. So this morning, that's my focus, and if you get nothing else out of what I say, I hope you take those two messages from Scripture. Peace be still, and I have called you by name. You are mine. Even as I say it now, I notice something shimmering and rising in me. It's interesting that that one came about, the one about names, because my spiritual practice this week, a new practice inspired by some conversation with Pastor Kwame Pitts about ancestral altars and how we can create those in our homes, led me to Ancestry.com. I don't know if you've gotten to explore Ancestry.com, or maybe you have developed family trees that you can recall and call on and notice the names of the people who have gone before, who have walked roads that perhaps you are walking right now. There is a power in that, in the practice of calling on our ancestors and recalling our ancestors and knowing their names. And what's particularly interesting is that I noticed that it became really hard to trace some of my ancestors because they've had to change their name, their literal name, the one that they were given when they were born, in order to survive in this country. It's fascinating to see the layers unpeeled as I recognize and notice all the different stages in their life and perhaps the name changes that went with those stages. I grew up knowing that, but seeing it on Ancestry.com was really fascinating, seeing how the layers are uncovered. Remembering when my grandmother found out that on her birth certificate she didn't actually have a first name. It was listed as baby. So what in your 60s if you could change your name? She kept it, Cornelia. She kept that Cornelia name she had carried her whole life and probably hated when she was a kid. So names are significant and important. And so to be recalling that text from Isaiah, when Isaiah recounts how God has reminded us through the generations that God calls us by name, and not just us individually. I went right away to that spiritual practice of naming our ancestors and lifting them up and noticing how they might be continually giving us messages and speaking to us even now in this liminal time, this thin place. But no, God didn't want us to get ultra personal. God wanted to remind us and remind the people then and us now reading that God holds it all. God knows us. God calls us by name, and we are God's. I take a great peace in knowing that sometimes. and being reminded of it. I say sometimes because I seem to forget. I seem to forget when I get caught up in the stuff of this world. How one of the first acts of creation was God calling names out, claiming, naming, loving, creating this space for us to be in. And my belief in God is that God doesn't let us alone in this space. God continually is naming, claiming, creating, and sustaining us every day. Just listen to the birds. Just look around you, wherever you are. So my practice and my prayer this day is for you to recall the names that carried you to this place, if you know them. Maybe do a little digging. I got on Ancestry.com because our library is offering it for free, to tumble down the rabbit hole of finding out new things, fascinating things about your family, about where you came from, and perhaps giving us clues about where you are today and where you're going. In this day, it's really hard sometimes to sit and pay attention and be, but perhaps that practice of naming and claiming, knowing and revealing, will help you settle into this space and time and where to be. So my friends, the words again that I heard this morning and I share with you for contemplation and settling into your heart and your mind and your soul are a reminder of Jesus' words to the disciples, peace, be still. Take it in. Peace, be still. And that larger reminder of God speaking to God's people across time, to us today, to remind us that then, and I believe now, God speaks into this, what sometimes feels like a great big void of a world that's full of stuff and people, and says, I have called you by name. You are mine. Named and claimed for the sake of the world, gathered in far reaches of this world. I pray you into this day. And now receive this blessing. Settle in, sit tight. While sitting tight, feel the freedom of your body. Rest and relax. Move your hands and your fingers. And may the God who loves you, who cherishes your very being, who provides your very breath, surround you, uphold you, and lift you, whispering over and over and over again until you can hear it. I have called you by name. You are mine. Rest in the mine. Peace, be still. Amen.